Lee.
Hi.
It's just you and me.
Yes, you and me.
So, so let's start with your house. Tell us 3 things that you love about your home.
It's cozy, it's manageable for my age, and I love my gardens.
Your garden's big piece for you. Let's also talk about your dining room, just quickly, because you also mentioned that as one of your favorite spots.
Yes, when I bought the house, I'm not a formal type person at all. And they had changed the attached garage into a living room, and what used to be the old living room was a formal dining room, and I'm just not a formal person. And I have loved books since I was a little kid, and one of my dreams was to have my own little library in my house. So my housewarming gift to myself was to buy 4 matching bookshelves. And I actually turned it into a little library, and that has a little bay window in it, a big bay window actually, and it is my favorite place in my home.
So why is owning a home so important to you?
Well, a little background is when I grew up, we grew up very poor. We lived in rentals my whole time as a child. Half of my adult life was spent in rentals as well. So the few times I did own a home, circumstances didn't make it last as long as I wished it would have. And so now, the home I'm in now, when you rent, it feels difficult because, you know, they say your home is your castle and stuff, but there is issues. I lived in duplexes where you have a lot of noisy neighbors upstairs and a lot of commotion. You don't feel like your yard is your own. And I know that we all, you know, usually do rent some part of our life, but I've rented a lot of my life. And so when I got in my home, it was just close to my heart because I really, really appreciated it big time.
And how long have you been in this house?
8.5 years.
Okay. So what led you to buying this home by yourself?
Okay, well, when I was 52, I was in a long marriage of 30-some years at that point. And it just wasn't going well for most of those years. But I really hung in there and tried to make it work, and I just couldn't. At 52, I hit a wall and said, I've lived somebody else's dreams, I've tried to make somebody else happy, and I got lost in the shuffle. And so went through a really hard time to actually think of being on my own. But I had a lot of living yet that I wanted to do, and I wanted to discover where that would take me. And so it was a difficult few years, about 3 years for the divorce to finally take effect. And at that point, I got a little bit of divorce money, enough to have a down payment on a place. And I was renting at the time again. And I just thought, that's a big gift to myself. And when I got on my own, I wasn't scared to be on my own because I had been the responsible one in the marriage and breadwinner for most of it. So there was no fear there. The fear was, can I really divorce somebody after 30-some years? And the impact of my son and my granddaughter. So it wasn't a snap decision. I don't make snap decisions in my life ever. And I give it the old college try for as long as I can. That's just who I am. But I've never regretted the decision because when I made it, it was something I was sure about.
So you speak about, when we spoke earlier, you kind of talk about that time in your life being a rebirth of sorts. How so?
Well, you know, when I grew up, I didn't have my parents there for me. When I was 5, my mom had a nervous breakdown and was in and out of mental institutions for 8 years. My dad had a drinking problem, and I was rather afraid of him. So I didn't have my 2 anchor parents, and my 3 siblings were much older than me. So I always felt like this little girl that was lost and abandoned. And I did the survival skills, and you develop a really strong sense of, I have to do these things no matter what comes up, I have to survive it, I have to get through it. I spent most of my marriage that way as well, so it's very ingrained in me to buck up. And so at that point, I realized that there's much more to life. And I felt like I had been in a cocoon for most of my life because I really didn't know who I was at all. It was trying to make everybody else happy and not me. And by 52, I hit that wall and just said, no, there's got to be something else here. So the butterfly came out.
Yeah. So your life, as you kind of alluded to, has been filled with taking care of others and helping others with your mom at a very young age. You also helped her through cancer for many years when you were young, teen, 13.
13 I started. She died when I was 20. They didn't have hospice back then, so I had to be the hospice of then, those times, which was incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And then you got into a relationship with an addict where you were also taking care of. You raised a son. Throughout your jobs, you were helping others. Who took care of you?
Nobody.
Yeah.
You know, a part of that I had discovered was also, I mean, we learned that we train people how to treat us as well. I had to take some responsibility for that because I felt like the whole world was on my shoulders. It always had been since I was a little girl. So the role that I was playing was that, you know, you have to buck up, you have to handle things. And so all of a sudden this little girl was still inside of me at 52 saying, I'm still scared, I'm still abandoned feeling. No matter your tough exterior, I'm still hurting down inside. So I had to do a lot of healing at that point to just try to find out, to understand what happened to me, and then to move on finally.
So if you could go back in time to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give to that 20-year-old?
Well, you know, it's a sad thing because when we're 20, we think we know it all, or else we don't know much at all, really. So I would just say, so important to heal your childhood issues, because when you don't, I carried a backpack of rocks on my back for my whole life until I was 52. Because if we don't heal those inner hurts of when we're that young and go through a lot of difficulties, it'll stay with you way down deep inside. It doesn't go away until you acknowledge it and you heal from it. So that 20-year-old self could have had a whole different life than what she had, but could have, should have, would have go nowhere. You just have to say that's what happened in my life, and I learned and grew through it, and you know, I'm basically pretty happy.
Yeah. I'd say. So back to your home. What made you contact Habitat for Humanity with regards to the preservation program?
Well, it was really, you know, I had always known they had done the houses. Habitat for Humanity is an awesome, awesome program. I have always been impressed with them because they, you know, give the hand up, not the handout. And I love that the Christian base. I'm a Christian, and it's very important to me. And to me, they're one of the organizations like Salvation Army that just show what it is to be Christians helping. And so I've always loved their program, thought it was really cool. And one day I got a flyer in the mail, and I set it down on the table, and I glanced down, and I saw Home Restoration Project? What's that? So that was a whole new thing to me. I had no idea that there was something like that offered. And when that happened, it was really good because one of my newer windows in the house, my bay window in the kitchen, was rotting. And my bathroom window wouldn't even open. And years before that, when I first bought the house, I had priced out what that was going to cost just to replace that. And that was like, it ain't going to happen. So now I'm looking at a rotting bay window, which was one of my newer windows. I'm looking at my garage, which is supposed to be beige and is turning pink and has rotted boards as well on the trims and up on the fascia and stuff. And I was running into feeling like, oh boy, because then my sidewalk that I use a lot between the house and the garage had developed a big crack, which wasn't getting any better either, and the other part of it was starting to raise up, and I thought, that's just going to be a tripping point, you know. So I came across things that, with my home, I could, you know, do all the inside painting, I clean, I organize, I love it, but I don't have certain skills. And that was feeling really lonely for me and really worrisome because rotting doesn't go away, cracks in sidewalks don't go away, and I knew that it was only going to increasingly get worse, and that's not what I want for my home. So thrilled when I saw that, and I called Jamie, and she told me about the program. Chris came out right away, and looked it over, and we, decided what could be done and what couldn't be done. And I was on cloud 9 at that point. Big, huge blessing.
So being the caretaker you are, was it hard to ask for the help?
Yeah, because of my buck up, get her done, take on the world yourself and deal with things. And, life hasn't always been so easy, but I've persevered constantly through it. You develop that really deep inside, and it is hard to ask for help. And that's what I said about we train people how to treat us, because I was always the strong one and felt I had to be with everybody in my family, my friends. I was always okay, I'll take it on, and get her done, and jump into it. And that was the role I played for most of my life. So it's incredibly hard to accept that you can be weak sometimes. You can ask for help when you've really never done much of that in your whole life. So grateful that I did.
And you were very clear with me about how grateful you are for this program and for Jamie and Chris.
Yes.
Do you want to give a shout out right now to
Yes,
them?
I would. I'm going to cry because it was so wonderful that people are so excited to help you and to be there for you when you need the help you need. And they were so friendly and so wanting to get right in there and, let's get this done for you, and let's get your house looking good the way you want it to look. And it was a weight off my shoulders completely, and I felt so comfortable with them. And all the volunteers that came, it was just amazing feeling that people are out there to help you. I have one son, he's 200 miles away, extremely intelligent, but not so good with the screwdriver, So there really wasn't too much that he could do for me either. So I was really totally feeling alone. So when I got involved with Jamie and Chris, it was like, this is amazing. They were so sweet and so friendly, and the work that was done was incredible. The teams that came out to help, they were all very, very nice people. So kudos to everybody in that program, because it's incredibly important for people like me that really want to keep our homes looking good and knowing that we aren't alone and that there is help out there, which was super. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
We're almost done.
I know.
So lastly,
Yes.
What do you envision for yourself for 2020?
Well, I'm engaged in life yet. There's something I'm learning as I get older. We're supposed to gain wisdom. I have more peace in my life than I've ever had in my whole life. I'm engaged. I want to learn. I want to grow constantly and change constantly. And I absolutely love my home. And because I'm so tight financially, I go out to eat maybe 4 times a year. I never go to movies. I never really can do much of anything really with the parameters that I'm working with in my life, because I know how to be frugal, and I've done it my whole life. That's why it's so incredibly important for me with my home, because I spend a lot of time in my home. And I call it my nest. I call it my haven, because that's what it is to me. It gives me so much joy. And when I go outside, and I'm so excited to dig in the dirt again, so ready for that, that brings me just as much joy as well. So my home is incredibly important to me, and so is my yard, my flowers, my vegetables. I mean, I gain so much joy and satisfaction from those 2 things that they warm my heart, because it is the majority of my life is spent there. And I'm so grateful that it is the way I want it to be.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Gertie.